Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me on the phone will be Jalen later on in this broadcast here of the Fishbowl Radio here. Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year here from the Fishbowl Radio. We're gonna have everything laid out for y'all here with this New Orleans, not New Orleans Bowl, New Mexico Bowl preview with ECU going in there here. The Cajuns go to New Orleans a lot. Sorry if I misspoke right there, but anyway. Let's go look at this ball game here that we will have listed up here and just kind of see what's going to happen here. Who are some of the playmakers that with the transfer portal period still being on, that there's still people entering the transfer portal and stuff. So a little bit of good news before we start getting into all the other problems here. So it is probable that Ben Wooldridge will be under center for the Cajuns in this bowl game here. So that is some good news here. Do I think the Cajuns win the Sun Belt Championship if Ben would have been starting under center? Probably not, because the way the line play was in that game. But the Cajuns got a good draw in this bowl matchup with TCU being a Power Four opponent here. And so if they win this bowl game, it'll be a huge win for the Cajuns and stuff. So that is something that we'll have to look at and see what happens there and just see how it all goes here. So right now, TCU is favored in this game by 12.5 points as of the recording of this broadcast here on Christmas Eve here. So if you want to know how to watch this game, it's going to be on December 28th at 1:15 Central Time, University Stadium, how to watch on ESPN. So TCU has an 8-4 record and the Cajuns are 10-3. So who are the players to watch here? Uh, so I think, if Ben isn't ready to go, Daniel Beal will be probably the guy here. He was thrown into the game after Chandler Fields, went down with his injury that happened in that game there. So I think it it might be time. I think Ben is probable to play in this game. So with that news coming out there, it's gonna be very interesting to see how the offense is because Terrence Carter's going his way out. Um, Harvey Broussard. That's just like who you're gonna have Lance LaGrange out there for at least one more time that we can see here. So it's gonna be what it'll be here. So the Cajuns have had elite rushing all season long, and that Draylen Washington won't be a part of that. But you do have Elijah Davis along with Zylan Perry, so that's a 1-2 very solid 1-2 punch there for the Cajuns here. Which Draylen was out with injuries for a good bit of the season here, so he didn't really contribute as much as still a good back, still not, but he's not going to be in this game here. So, um, they're ranking the top 25 in the country, and rushing basically. And the weakest part of TCU's defense is run defense, and they're 117th in earned per rush here. So TCU has struggled as being a favorite in these games, and they're 3-5 against the spread as a favorite, and 2-4 when laying more than a touchdown this season. So they are more likely to lose games as a favorite, obviously, if you look at it that way. So that is something that's going to be very good for the Cajuns here, along with this game here. So looking at that here, um, I think the Vegas is putting TCU a little bit high in my opinion of this game here, based on what I'm seeing here. Even though the Cajuns struggled, it's going to depend for me who's under center here. If Ben, he said probable, if that comes to fruition, and he's going to be out there during that game, I think you have a good chance of the Cajuns picking up a W with Ben out there. Ben can spread that ball around better than anybody else on that team here. But there's one name I want people to remember here on this broadcast here, that I think will be very important for them to maybe understand, and that this might be a coming out party for them as they catapult into 2025 season. Caden Jensen is one man I'm looking at here that could be that X factor in this game here. Now, he ain't gonna be no Terrence Carter. He's looks like he's a little bit more heavier, like a heavy set guy compared to Carter. Carter was a little bit more nimble, agile, and like more of a receiving tight end than Jensen is. But Jensen, if he develops that receiving part of his resume better than it has been, he's been more of a blocking guy from what I can see out there on the field and stuff. So, but if he becomes that dominant tight end that I think Jensen, he's got the body for it. He reminds me of a Ladarius Green kind of body type style here. Carter was more receiving. He wasn't as big, and but like if he develops his hand, Jensen, with the ball, I think we got a really good opportunity for the Cajuns to be one of those. Like he'd be a really good like hybrid tight end receiver, blocking where he could do good both in both ways here. If he develops that receiving game a little bit better for himself, I think he'd be a really good key aspect for Michael Desimo and the rest of in that regard here. Speaking of Coach Desimo and Coach Des, he am extending a 5 year extension, and that's huge for the Cajuns. I think that really, this guy's had success here this past year. He had two 6 and 7 seasons. And I felt that this year, we were talking about in the preview of the upcoming season here, that he had to prove himself to be that guy. And, he very well much did. Like I've said many times before, I will mention it every time we start talking about coaching tenures. You have 4 years. Every coach should have 4 years before you start canning them, unless problems arise, obviously. Like it's definitely like this isn't working here, and you got to make a change. And I mean, we saw that with men's basketball. It wasn't working for Coach Bob Marlin, and they looked like they were gracious enough to let him finish out the season here. But Coach Marlin took the buyout, and he, a good buyout at that. Being a D1 coach is gonna be a good buyout regardless. So look, they're going to do a farewell tour for him. I think he served men's basketball very well for his course of the years that he went there. You could tell, like I thought, well, I think Fishbowl Nation really thought it. Fishbowl itself, we were broadcasting this like in 2020, I think it was 22, beginning part 22, when they were like, we were covering it for the basketball thing, and we were wondering, like, okay, is he actually going to make it out this season having his job still? Went on that good run, lost in the championship game. But then the year after that, they came back and ended up winning the Sub Belt, went to the NCAA tournament here. And that was enough to get him an extension. Now, they got this coaching search going on, and there's a bunch of names out there that have been thrown around. I'm gonna devolve into that here and see what happens here. We'll just see what happens with all that there. So I think that's something that we got to look at here. And we'll talk about Bob Marlin's, like I said, a little bit later on this broadcast here. But talking about TCU and get back on track with that, I think this is a pivotal game for Coach Jazz and them. I think they have to have, because I am seeing something that I don't think a lot of Cajun fans are going to like to hear, but we don't try to make friends here. If you don't agree with what we put out there, that's your own judgment, what you got to make and stuff out there. And I'm just going to spit the facts like they come here. Uh, so the only big win under Coach Desimo's record, okay, is the New Orleans Bowl postseason. I'm talking about postseason play. New Orleans Bowl, 2021. His first ever game as a head coach, basically. That would be counted on his record. But 2022 Independence Bowl, lost that one. 2023 bowl game, we lost that one too, which was back in New Orleans. That was against Jacksonville State. This year, he's 1-2 in bowl games. Okay, if we go 1-3, you got to start kind of like seeing what we're seeing here. This is a pattern that we're noticing here. Sun Belt Championship game, late it came out flat. Now you can say like, oh, the player wasn't invested or whatever, but we can't make excuses for it. I think the players would actually got better NIL offers if they would have won that game though too. So there's a lot going on there and stuff like that. So we could blame it all they want here, but we'll see what happens with that there. But look, these guys want to win, and I don't think they would have like turned away a chance to win a conference title just because they're dipping out somewhere. Might be a pride thing for them too. Maybe that because that's usually what ball players are. Like you want to win titles, you want to win championships, regardless if you're getting paid or not. You want to go out there and win. I think that's the main principle all throughout sports. You just want to win games. You want to do everything in your power to win games, and I don't think that was the case there. But what I'm seeing when I look out there is what we are seeing. And 22 and 23, that's two bowl games in a row we lost here. So postseason success hasn't been there for the Cajuns here. Now you can say, oh well, Coach Jazz has big wins against. I wouldn't call Wake Forest a big win. Wake Forest is a really weak Power Four team. We can, bulk up all we want about these Power Four wins here, but if they're against people if they're against teams that are like really low on the power four spectrum, that doesn't move the needle for your program that much. Now, granted, the top G5 should be beating these power four teams anyway, because now, like I was talking about with the transfer portal, we're in an era where right now, if we're in an era of college football where I don't know if y'all are seeing it or if y'all are blind to it, but there's more parity in the sport than we ever had before. And we were kind of mentioning that before then. That wasn't some crazy new idea that people had here. But I think the word parity for college football is going to become more well known because a lot of these guys are not going to want to sit the bench. Like, do you think pre-NIL era, a quarterback like Walker Howard would have came to UL? Okay, let me ask you that. Would you have had a five-star prospect come to UL out of high school before NIL era even existed here, just for the chance to play as a starting quarterback, the potential to play as a starting quarterback? So I don't think the answer would have been there. I don't think that would have ever happened here. Now, with this NIL era and this transfer portal, the portal taketh and the portal giveth to you. Okay. So sometimes, like, if you're going to have success as a top G5 team, which is kind of like a minor league system for a lot of these big Power Five programs, like, look what's going on with Houston and the Cajuns. Houston's definitely treating UL as a little feeder school to them. That's exactly what's going on there. Texas Tech. Saw what happened with the softball team. And you see what's happening with right now with Terrence Carter and the rest of them. They're getting these athletes all with these different schools all talk to each other. I know when I was in college, I talked to like people that I knew in different majors and stuff. This is the exact same thing, except these athletes are like, they got schedules and stuff, and they're trying to figure out how to go about this college thing and everything else there. So some of these kids are not going to play NFL, UFL because they're just, plain Jane straight up. They're not good enough. Okay. That's just the way it is. So I don't blame them for taking NIL money on the run here, where they can and take the money wherever they go here. Because look, man, like the way the world is right now, it's getting tougher and tougher on these kids here making decisions here. But if you get paid $100,000 to go more at a different school or whatever, shoot, I don't blame you for taking it because that's easily a down payment on a house somewhere, easily. And you can start a life for yourself. It's really hard, like in the whole loyalty like thing to a school is kind of a dead, archaic way here. I've said it before on here. You basically these college athletes are basically mercenaries for their schools, basically. Just in a like a football mercenary or a softball mercenary. That's just the way it is, and that's the way the concept of the sport is. But they're not gonna get this NIL thing under control because they don't want to get under control. Like whoever is, unless it affects one of the big dogs, and that's the only way they're gonna start getting that stuff under control. But talking about that there here, if I had to pick this Louisiana and TCU game here, oh man, I think the Cajuns. This is tough. I want Dez to win this one. I want him to win a bowl game that way. That like these thoughts that creep into my head, and whenever I think about this, like I'm like, he's done very well this year. But can we win the really big one? And I think this is a big one. This one's bigger. This would be a bigger win than the Wake Forest win earlier this season here. If it would have been Tulane, that'd have been a huge win. Because this schedule was really technically, if you're looking at it from a strength of schedule standpoint for the Cajuns and stuff, we had a really easy schedule this year. The Sun Belt wasn't as strong this year in football as it's been in years past. Regardless of how you want to look at it and stuff, that's just the way it is, and that's the way the conference is. You can go look at the records and stuff, and they'll back you up on there compared to what we were a couple of years. Um, so looking at it now and just trying to see what's going on here. So um, let me see if I can get this strength of schedule thing pulled up real quick. That way I can tell you how weak it was. It wasn't very strong at all. Yeah, because we had looked at it, I think, about a week ago. 127. Strength of schedule winning percentage, 116. Yeah, so um the highest ELO team we played against, I think it was Marshall, actually. It was Marshall. So with the 40, like, so TCU's 37, Tulane was a 48. We lost that one. We lost to a 69, and we lost to a 26, which those losses are South Alabama, Marshall, and Tulane. So I'm gonna just say it. I think the Cajuns will drop this game to TCU. I just don't think. I think we'll lose by. I think I don't. I think Vegas is gonna be wrong as the favorite. I would take the points if I was on betting on this game for the Cajuns here, but I think this is gonna be a 7 point win for TCU. I I want to be wrong on this one, but I just don't see it happening there. It's just the weak schedule of it all, and I think that that big like you got the transfer portal thing going on. I know TCU's been affected by it too, but we'll see what happens when we get down to it there. But Cajuns the yellow is 41. They've had a great season, strong season for them to continue on, but I think they'll drop this one to TCU. But I want to look at the predicted results here. What does Warren Nolan think we do here? It looks like it's got us losing. Got to losing by 31-28 to TCU. Hey, I'll take that even better. It's less than what I think. I had 7, so I think that's good for them here. But let's get Jalen on right now, and we'll get Jalen on right now and see what he thinks about all this mess here. What you think, Jalen, about this matchup with Louisiana versus TCU?
Yeah, Chief, I think the Cajuns match up well against this TCU team. TCU missing some pieces on their side of the ball because of injuries and the transfer portal, and the Cajuns are the exact same way when it comes to injuries and players leaving through the transfer portal. So I think both teams are going out there with something to prove. The Cajuns, having lost the Sun Belt Championship game to Marshall, will be looking forward to getting back in the win column, where TCU, they won like 3 or 4 games in a row. So both teams are kind of going in with a little bit of momentum. We're going to see which coach is going to outcoach the other, and I think it's going to be a great game between two ball clubs.
So asking him what I think the X factor of this game is, and if you're looking at Louisiana TCU, who we think the X factor is, I think it's gonna be under whoever's quarterback. Um, I think I think if Ben's out there, he's definitely gonna be an X factor for sure that he needs to be watched. I think Kane Jensen, we're gonna see how he feels into that Terrence Carter role, like I was mentioning earlier in this broadcast here. But if we look at that there, I think we got a good opportunity to see what's gonna happen there. But we'll just see what happens whenever that gets there. So, Jalen, who you think is gonna be the X factor for this Louisiana versus TCU matchup here?
I think I'm going in a different direction than most people would think when it comes to the X factor, but I think the coaches are the X factor of the game. Okay, Coach Michael Desmond for the Cajuns has had a great historic year himself for this Cajuns football team. I think getting to the Sun Belt Championship game was the biggest thing. I know, unfortunately, it did end up losing, but still, trying to get into another W to end the year would be great for his ball club. And then you got Sonny Dykes on the other side for TCU, who they went to a national championship a couple of years ago, Chief, if everybody remembers. They ultimately lost that game and did have a great season last year, but this year they were able to bounce back and get to a bowl game. So I think the X factor is which coach is going to outcoach the other, and I think whichever one of them does, that's who's going to win this bowl game.
So, Jalen, what you think about like how huge of a bowl win would this be? I gave my take on that, Jalen. So, what do you think this bowl win would do for a program like Louisiana and seeing how they would do in the future? I think that will help them.
This bowl win will be huge for the Cajuns program, I think. And let's look at the obvious. The last 2 years, they lost the bowl games, one to Houston, then the next one to Jacksonville State. It'll be great for the Cajuns to win this bowl game because they'll be going against not only a great TCU team that they can beat, but you got to remember too, like I said earlier, Chief, they lost to Marshall in the Sun Belt Championship game, and it honestly wasn't even close. So I think for the Cajuns to pick up this win will be huge for the program because you don't want to go on a 3 game bowl losing streak, especially with Michael Desmo being his 3rd year as the head coach. So I think this would be a great win for the Cajuns to get against a great TCU team. And like I said, both teams are missing pieces, so it's all about who wants it more. And I think the Cajuns, they have to play well. So we'll see what happens in that. But yeah, I think that this would be a great, huge win for the Cajuns team if they were able to pull off the win against TCU.
So, I think another thing that we need to talk about here, Jalen, is the fact that Bob Marlin's legacy here. So if y'all want to know what I think his legacy is, because we've asked this question on social media, and not many people really talked about it too much here. But what is going to be his legacy when we look back 20 years from now at men's basketball? And I liked what someone had a very long paragraph, and they said that it's going to depend on what the next coach is, which is true, because if that coach comes out here, whoever the new head coach is, and gets the Cajuns to a couple of Final Fours and really transforms this thing into like this big behemoth of a college basketball giant, which could very well happen. Basketball is one of those sports that the Cajuns were very good in back in the 70s and 80s. So I mean, look, that's just the way it is. So my legacy point of Bob Marlin would be kind of like somewhere sitting around there, but I think once it's all said and done, I think we'll have I think Bob, looking back on what he's done here, he's won a couple of titles, Sun Belt championships, a regular season title in 2018, a Sun Belt title, a tournament title in 2022, 23, I think. Yeah, 23. And looking back in 2014 on that run there. So it's not like he was just like always finishing fifth and sixth. There was a couple of moments where he did have great success, but people want to have tournament success here. They want to win games in the tournament here, one or two of them at least before you get bounced out here. But I think that was like with Bob, we can make it to the big dance, but we didn't dance very long. I think that would be kind of the legacy there. It's just only only two appearances here. We should have won. The best team we had under Bob Marley was that 2018 team, and we just didn't do that good in that tournament. Which unfortunately for that should have been our third tournament appearance there, and it took us a while to get back there. But I think that would be good right there. So, uh, but yeah, my point with the legacy thing is. I think we'll look back like, yeah, we did all right. I think it was just gonna be all right. Like, I wouldn't say mediocre, but I think like a little bit of like a fifth was your average finish, but like if you look at it from like this all comes down to what you expect out of the program here. Like if you expect um like baseball does get a little bit of a crutch. Look, the Sun Belt is better in baseball and softball, but we do get a little bit of a crutch in baseball because the conference is so good that we get four or five teams in there. I do think that we are kind of on par with our peers in terms of the basketball team. Like, I think that some people are just kind of like living back in the 70s that we're like looking back on with rose-colored glasses on with the program. And I think that we are kind of in that same vein as the rest of these schools here. We don't want to admit it, but I do think that's part of the problem here. But uh, I think we do have enough potential to jump out of that and become a top Sweet 16 regular if everything falls right perfectly for us here. Will we get to national championships? It's like in this NIL era. Shoot, man, if we took like I think we're definitely more of a baseball school than anything else. I think baseball and football, you can make an argument for both here. Granted, football is going to have more people attend. People like football more than they like baseball. If you're looking at it from probably even around here, I think baseball is probably the second most popular sport in South Louisiana. And I think football definitely takes cake being number one. But look all the great baseball programs we have right here in Louisiana. That's just the way it is. Like there's so many athletes around here. That's just the way it is. So um, Jalen, what you think will be Bob Marlin's legacy when it's all said and done in like 20 years now or so?
20 years from now, we're going to look at Bob Marlin's legacy as the Raging Cajuns men's basketball coach, and we're going to say he did a great job as the men's coach. I would say he's the all time leader in Sun Belt Conference wins. He led the team to two NCAA tournament appearances in 2014 and 2023. And you have to remember, in 2014, that's when Elfrid Payton, former Raging Cajuns point guard, was selected in the NBA draft, and he was a lottery pick, the 10th overall pick. So that takes great coaching, great skills to get a player from the Raging Cajuns men's basketball team to get to the NBA is quite impressive in itself. And not alone that, he's coached so many great players along the line. You got to think about the 2018 uh, Sun Belt team that the Raging Cajuns men's basketball team, what they had. They the most wins, I think, in Raging Cajuns men's basketball history, yet they weren't able to make it to the NCAA tournament because they lost in the conference tournament. But that team was stacked with Frank Bartley, Bryce Washington, Malik Marquetti. I can go on and on. But I think overall, if you take the players out the equation, just everything that he's done in and outside for the Raging Cajuns men's basketball team won't go unnoticed. Jordan Brown's another great player of recent who helped lead his team to the last NCAA tournament appearance. So I think overall, his legacy, he will go down as one of the greatest men's basketball coaches for Louisiana basketball. And not just that, he will go down as one of the greatest coaches that coach a Division One mid-major program. So I think Bob Marlin did a great job. Love to see what's next for him, whether that's coaching or whether he's just going to retire. But I think overall, as the men's basketball coach for Louisiana, I think he did a great job.
Okay, there you go. So that's what Jalen's thoughts are on this particular topic here. So yeah, the legacy thing, it's gonna be interesting to see, but we're gonna look ahead for Louisiana men's educated basketball schedule here. Right now, not looking too good coming off a loss against McNeese. We were there for the McNeese game, and it was definitely more jazzed than it would be normally here. Uh, Big game going against Coastal here coming up here, and then Georgia State. I think the Cajuns will win one of these games. I think they've definitely because McNeese is their RPI is at 55. They were up there, and the Cajuns until like the last minute or so, they were in that game until McNeese eventually broke it open and blew away for a little bit. But I think they'll win against Coastal and probably drop the game against Georgia State. Now, granted, I Coastal's 5-6 on the year. Georgia State 3-8 here. We're only going to count like the so technically Cajun are 2-10 against regular Division One teams here. They haven't won. They're 2-3 against Quadrant Four record teams here. So with them being that high up, I'm you're in that Quadrant Four record. I mean, that was like 500 right there. So looking at it from that point of view, I think Coastal will lose to the Cajuns, and I think the Cajuns beat or lose to Georgia State here. I think the or it could flip. I think they'll take one of those there. So that's my prediction here until we get to the first week of January here. Just trying to see what's going to happen here. There's not really much to talk about here. There was definitely more. There's most people I've seen in the stadium here. And quite definitely easily the biggest crowd of the year for this team, for the Cajuns men's basketball team here. So they were definitely like excited. I think they could see all those people there. That big wing brought the people out against App State. But like once conference play starts, it's a brand new season basically. You can because it looked like literally what Bob Marlin did say was technically true. That only 3 games in the March technically matter with the Sun Belt because there's only one bid for the Sun Belt in the NCAA men's basketball. So you're only gonna get that one bid. So you got to really crank it up and try to get those wins in the tournament here. You just got to win the tournament. It doesn't matter if you could literally go undefeated, but in the Sun Belt conference play, like let's say the Cajuns would just bulldoze through and go undefeated in the Sun Belt conference play, they still wouldn't get in if they don't win the tournament. And that's crazy. Like you gotta think about like the odds that like you would go undefeated in your conference when they go to conference tournament, you make it all the way to the championship, you lose the championship, but you still wouldn't make it in. So yeah, that's basically what's going on there. Now, the women's on the other hand here have dropped the last 2 games here, both two SEC teams at LSU and Auburn. So we'll see what happens with that there. They're gonna be playing Dillard on Friday. Cajuns will probably win that one. I don't see them losing to Dillard. I think they'll pick up the win and then go on Sunday against at Georgia Southern here. I think Cajun win both these games here. I'm really liking what I see out of this women's basketball team here. They're 4-6 in their last 10, but they've played some tough teams. Auburn and LSU are 28 and 53 here. So look, they they could probably win. They might have a good chance to get really deep in the Sun Belt here. James Madison's gonna be a tough team for them to beat though. Coming up pretty soon here. So we'll see what happens here with those games here. But I think they'll do win against Dillard and at Georgia Southern. So I think that's what my predictions are for this upcoming week of Louisiana Educated men's basketball and women's basketball. So thank you for tuning in here to this episode here of the Fishbowl Radio. Hope you have a great and wonderful night, and we'll see you here next time here on the Fishbowl Radio. Hope you have a great and wonderful day, and Merry Christmas to y'all. And I hope you all have a Happy New Year, and let's ring in 2025 together here. Thank y'all for all your support of the Fishbowl Radio throughout 2024. and hopefully for many years to come. From the bottom of my heart and the rest of everybody here on the Fishbowl Nation, thank y'all for allowing us to do what we do here, and we have a lot of support from y'all, and that I'm glad that y'all support us because that's what we need. Everybody needs support every once in a while, So thank y'all for tuning in. I want to let y'all know that I love y'all. Hope your families are all having a great Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a great and happy, great and happy New Year. So thank y'all for tuning in here. Hope you have a great and wonderful holiday season. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation.